Sometimes fate plays with us in places we try to tell us a need, but we do not hear, or we think of them just delusions. But Samir heard and heard everything, and I am sure that what happened to him was not just a fantasy. This is the story of home number 46, the room that is forbidden to open. Our story today revolves around a single man in his early 30s. His name is Samir. He recently moved from the loud city to a quiet rural town. He decided to start a new life after going through a bitter divorce experience. Looking for a decent home in the countryside turned out to be something difficult. Either the houses were far from the city centre, or they were too expensive. While looking for housing, he stumbled upon an ad in one of the local newspapers. There was a picture of an old beautiful house, which seemed to be straight out of a fairy tale, and the price was exaggeratedly cheap. Immediately, Samir contacted the owner of the property. It was an elderly woman who seemed very tired from the talk. All he knew was that the house has been abandoned for years. As soon as Samir explained to her that he wanted to rent the house, the old woman became very happy and told him that she was waiting for his call. In less than 2 days, the contract was signed and Samir moved into the house. He was very happy with the new house, but there was one thing that bothered him. In the house, there was a total of 5 rooms. 4 of them he easily furnished and made them ready to live in, but there was a 5th room that remained completely untouched. When Samir asked the old woman about the room, she just told him, "That room is very cold. It's better if you don't touch it at all." Samir laughed and said to her, "I am not the type that is afraid of myths." But what Samir did not know is that the old woman was hiding a great secret from him, and the room is hiding a terrible truth. When the sun went down, the silence began to fall in the house. Suddenly, the old woman's words rang in Samir's head again. "It's better if you don't touch that room." A sudden gust of wind hit the window, and suddenly the lights went out. Samir felt a cold sweat all over his body. What is happening? Is the house haunted by ghosts? The first night passed somehow. The second night, however, was more difficult. Although Samir lived alone, he heard the sound of steps in the upper floor. He listened carefully, and the sound of footsteps continued. He slowly headed toward the stairs and went up to the 2nd floor. He realized that the sound of footsteps had come from at the bottom. There was an iron chain, as if it were a prison cell. With a sudden courage, Samir stepped forward and put his hand on the handle and pushed. But the door was locked with an old lock and dust for years. He pressed his ear against the door and heard the sound of footsteps again. Suddenly, the door began to flounder, as if someone was trying to open it from the faces. Terror gripped Samir and he ran away. Back downstairs, he tried to sleep, but the door started floundering again. Then he heard a soft voice saying, "Open, please open." Samir couldn't take it anymore, and he called the owner of the house. She picked up the phone and asked her about the door. She replied to him and said, "This room does not open. Whatever happens, you don't open." "Why?" She said to him, "Because those who have come to her are still awake." After ending the call, Samir understood that he would not be able to sleep tonight. So he took a chair and sat next to the door, listening to the sound of footsteps and the voice asking to be opened. On the 4th night, Samir started dreaming about the same scene every night. A small girl bass in the corner of the closed room, with a coincidence, and crying. Everything that is nearly screaming a screaming ear. Maksu wakes up. On the 5th night, Samir got up and went to the door and tried to disassemble the lock. To his surprise, the lock was easily disassembled, and the door opened with a squeak. Samir entered the room and found himself in a simple apartment. No furniture or decorations, only a large mirror on one of the walls. But when Samir approached the mirror, he did not see his reflection. Instead, he saw a small child crying inside the mirror. The child looked at Samir with sad eyes and then stretched out her hand towards him. Samir felt a sudden urge to approach the mirror and comfort the child, but before he could do anything, the lighting went out and the door slammed shut in front of him. Samir screamed with all his might, but no one answered him. He rushed to the door and started pounding it with his fists, but it was no use. The door did not open, no matter how much he tried. He spent the whole night in front of the door until morning. When the rooster crowed, the door opened. Samir collapsed in front of it and waited for the owner of the house to come. The old woman arrived soon after sunrise. She was very surprised to see Samir sitting in front of the open door. She asked him what had happened, and Samir explained everything to her. He also told her about the girl he had seen in the mirror and how she had talked to him. The old woman listened to him quietly, without saying a word. When Samir finished speaking, the old woman sighed heavily and said to him, "You should not have opened that door. Now you will never be able to leave this house." She then explained to Samir the truth about the house and the room. The house had been built more than 100 years ago. At that time, it was the home of a wealthy family. But one day, the family's young daughter died in the house under mysterious circumstances. No one knows what really happened to the child, but her ghost is said to haunt the house to this day. The old woman had bought the house many years ago and had been renting it out ever since. But every tenant who had stayed in the house for more than 3 days had begun to see the ghost of the little girl. The tenants would try to ignore the ghost, but eventually they would hear the sound of footsteps and the voice of the little girl asking to be opened. They would then open the forbidden room and disappear forever. No one knows what happens to them, but their belongings would often be found scattered around the room. After hearing the old woman's story, Samir began to feel very scared. He didn't want to become another victim of the house. But now it was too late. The ghost of the little girl had chosen him. Samir tried to fight the ghost. He tried to ignore the sound of footsteps and the voice of the little girl, but he couldn't take it anymore. He packed his bags and decided to leave the house. But when he tried to open the front door, he found that it was locked from the outside. He started to panic, but then he heard the sound of footsteps on the stairs. The ghost of the little girl was coming for him. Samir ran away to the second floor and locked himself in the bathroom. He tried to hide there until morning, but then he heard the sound of the door opening. The ghost of the little girl had found him. Samir screamed as loud as he could, but no one could hear him. He could feel the cold breath of the ghost on his neck, but he could not see her. Then suddenly, everything went black. In the morning, the neighbors smelled a strange stench coming from the house. They immediately called the police. When the officers arrived, they found the house empty. The only thing that was there was the open bathroom door. The ghost of the little girl had claimed another victim. But what happened to Samir's body? Did the ghost take it with her? Or is it still wandering the house to this day? And here we reach the end of our terrifying story for today. What do you think happened to Samir? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Also, please subscribe to support us. And if you liked the story, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Thanks for watching. See you next time.